Number 14 here says find the x and y intercepts, then graph. So I'm going to graph using the intercepts. So the first thing I want to do here is go, okay, I'm going to find the x-intercept. That means make the y 0. Remember, it's always the other one 0 when it comes to intercepts. And x equals 6. So we cross the x-axis at 6.
There are still 13 staff members who have not posted a portion or all of their attendance. Please take care of your attendance now. Thank you.
Pardon the interruption there. And then for the y-intercept, make the x 0. Y equals 3. So those are my two intercepts. And then that creates a line. Alright. 15 says write the equation of a line in point slope form that has a slope of m equals -3.
All students who are not participating in an extracurricular activity at this time, please report to the front of the school to wait for your ride.
Okay. So you can see I plugged it into point slope form. Okay. So I put the points, then you got to clean it up a bit. I do not need to solve for y because they didn't ask for slope intercept. They asked for point slope. So I can just go ahead and leave it right there. Number 16, graph. Now remember, the parent function is just this. So I am adding outside. So that's up one space. And then I draw my v. So I added inside. This is the one that goes backwards. So stuff inside moves it left to right. And it's backwards when it's inside. So it goes to -1. Number 18 says the height in inches of a tree is given by h equals 2m plus 7, where m is months. What is the y-intercept and what does it represent? Well, in this case, you can see how this looks like. Okay, this m is different. It's part of the word problem for month, but it's acting like our x. So the y-intercept is 7. And so think about it. What does that represent in terms of the height of a tree? Well, when we graph these things, if I was to graph this, that's where I would start from. Say that is 7. So what that is the starting height of tree when they started to do this function. Okay, because it's where I start. Then I would draw this line and showing that it increases as it gets older, right? Number 19. A club sold hamburgers for $3 and hot dogs for $2.50. They raised $240. Write an equation to find how many of each items were sold. Okay? Then graph and label each axis to indicate the intercept. So what you got to think here is, if I knew how many hot dogs they had, I'd multiply that by 3. That's how much money they get for hamburgers. If I knew how many hot dogs they sold, which they're telling me are wide, I would multiply that by 250. And that would give me the number of hot dogs. If I add those together, that's how many they get total, and you can see that is 240. So they want me to graph using the intercepts. So I'm going to go ahead and find the x-intercept first. And say 3x plus 2 times that times 0 equals 240. And I get 3x equals 240. Divide by 3, and x equals 80. Right, because 20 divided by 3 is 8. Find the y-intercept, and that's 3 times 0 plus 2.5y equals 240. Then I get 2.5y equals 240. Divide that by 2.5. And that's 96. Okay. Oops, sorry, not 9.6, 96. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and graph that on this. I'll put my graph right about here. Now you can see I got some pretty big numbers, so I'm going to have to make these worth a little bit more. So I'm going to make them worth tens. So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And and this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 96 is about halfway, which is about right there. Okay. And there's my line. Okay. All right, number 20 says which is linear. Remember, linear means the x is to a power of 1. So that's absolute value. That's got an x of 3. So these two are both linear because the x has a power of just a 1 right there, right? Okay. 21. Last question here. Find the slope of a line that passes through the points 3, 5, and 6, 13. Write an equation slope-intercept form. State the slope and y-intercept. Okay? So, if you remember, if they give me points, I got to use point slope, but I also need a slope. So let's start with finding a slope. Okay. Go ahead and use slope formula here. So that's 13 minus 5 and 6 minus 3. Okay. And so when I do this, I go ahead and subtract, right? So I get what, 8 over 3? Okay, 8 over 3. That's my slope. Okay, now I plug it in. Use whichever one you want. Probably the one with smaller numbers, so I'm going to pick that one. So that's part 1, finding slope. I'm going to do part 2, which is plug in a point slope form. So I'm going to say y minus 5 equals 8 over 3 times x minus the x value, which is 3. Then I got to solve for slope-intercept form, so that means I got to distribute that. And so I get 8 over 3x. Put this over 1, that gives me 24 over 3. That fraction reduces to minus 8, right? I'll add 5 to both sides, and I get y equals 8 over 3x minus 3. Okay, taking a look at that to make sure I got my numbers in the right places. Okay. Yeah, so what is my slope? Well, that's 8 over 3. What is my b? Negative 3.